time for some more BSL action. We just completed Group C. Now we've got Group D for disaster. It's going to be Ziki, Dandy, Ziggy, and Gorinich facing off. And this is going to be one of the best groups we've ever had in BSL because we've got 3 players that have gone extremely deep in the BSL. Dandy is a champion. Gorinich got second. And Ziki, one of the best players of the foreign scene right now. So this should be very hype. And Ziggy, even though he hasn't done as well in BSL, this guy's very, very good. If he gets a TVT versus Dandy, I think for sure that there could be some upsets happening. So, Mihai, what are your thoughts on the disaster group, as people in the chat have mentioned?
Yeah, I don't know. It's exciting, man. There's a lot of really good games coming up here. The first one of which is going to be Ziggy versus Sziky in a sick TVZ, and then after that we're going to have Gorinich versus, of course, Dandy and other ZVT. So TVZ Fiesta. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have to say that it is the group of death, but I feel like Sziky and Dandy are for sure the favorites here. It'd be kind of, obviously Gorinich could cause would it really be an upset? I don't know, but I do feel like people, if I were a betting man, I would be betting on Sziky and Dandy for sure.
All right, so you know what that means, chat. Definitely go for Ziggy and Gorinich.
Man, I forgot I'm not supposed
Mihai just jinxed everybody. Yeah, so definitely get that in the chat poll that I'm sure is going to appear any moment now. Definitely vote Ziggy Gorinich. You heard it here first. They're going to get out in first and second place. I tend to agree with your assessment, but Gorinich, he was one of the few players that brought it to Bonif in a previous BSL, but that's ZVP. ZVT is completely different, and we know Ziki has monster muta control, so it's going to be very hard regardless who Gorinich goes up against. But he is very, very good. He always goes very deep. But as you mentioned, our first matchup is going to be Ziki versus Ziggy. I'm trying to think back to how many ZVTs we saw with Ziki. I think we saw only one where it was like on Gladiator. So that must have been like a race war matchup, and he kind of overwhelmed the Terran. But other than that, I'm not too sure of his ZVT style.
Yeah, I mean, Ziggy, I think, is kind of a meching player, so I wouldn't be surprised if he whips out, last season we saw him, he was actually in the opening group. He was the opening game for BSL 10, and he played a TVZ on Eclipse where he went mech, kind of like Medino almost, so I would expect him to play that kind of style. Sziky, of course, he does play very standard, very macro-oriented. So we'll see, as my cat is going crazy in the background, we'll see what Sziky can do here.
Yeah, because I've only played Ziggy on the ladder, it's obviously TVT, and I don't think he streams very often. I'm not too sure exactly what he's going to bring to us in a TVC. My experience versus him is he seems to play very normal, TVT obviously, but he's quite aggressive, so it wouldn't surprise me if he tries to bring it to Ziki with something like 2-port Wraith, or maybe like a Vulture run by and just consistently go for harassment, or even something like a Marine Medic push very quickly to try and just set the tone of the game. But Ziki, we know that he's got all-star muta control, so if the game goes according to plan, he doesn't get set back like Oxzerg did yesterday, I imagine it's going to be pretty rough for Ziki.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think definitely Ziggy is a bit of an underdog here. But, we've seen it happen before. We've seen the upsets happen. That's what competition is all about. And at the end of the day, we might have our expert opinions. Chat might have their expert opinion. Then, the Discords might have their expert opinions. But when it comes down to it, the players sit down and they play the game, and the results will speak for themselves. So definitely, this is a time to shine for Ziggy, kind of to break out. Doing it here against Sziky and in this group would be really an incredible feat. But it is going to be a challenge, and Eclipse is going to be the first map. So Sziky versus Ziggy. Let's see who the better Ziggy is.
So in the top right in the red, we have our Zerg player. It is Ziki.
And in the bottom left, in the blue, sporting that command center skin, it is the Polish Terran Ziggy.
So let me ask you about some mind games or metagaming here. It's best of one. You know, Ziggy probably thinks that he's probably the underdog, but also, you know, probably Ziki probably thinks he's the favorite. So if you're either side of the coin here, what's your thoughts going into it? Do you think that Ziki's expecting like Ziggy to cheese him, and then Ziggy should just go for like some type of greedy build? Or do you think like, you know, maybe Ziggy acknowledges that probably Ziki thinks like that, and then he's just going to play something weird? Well, I already have to say there's a wall going up, so this looks like it could be something like 2-port raid.
Yeah, I don't know. It really comes down to the players, obviously. But I would suspect that Ziki, you know, he probably thinks he's the better player. Of course, he is the most, like, he is the more established player. And generally, you know, especially being a macro player that Ziki is, I feel like when you have kind of that expectation that you're the better player, yeah, that is a gas. You know, you kind of just expect, you kind of want to play as solidly as possible. Whereas when you're someone in Ziggy's shoes and you're kind of that underdog, it can lead to more of a tendency to just throw in something crazy. But if Ziggy really thinks, you know, Ziggy might be one of those players where they think they're really strong, they think they have very much a lot of confidence, then he might still play it straight up anyway. But I know for a fact that Ziggy does not play kind of the traditional bio 2 racks type TVZ. He does go for these tech builds, he does go for these mech builds, and it might not be an all-in, but it is going to be a mech build.
Well, this is an extremely fast factory, and if Ziki knows factory timings, he should realize that this is 15 seconds faster than normal, and the only way you can get a factory up this fast is if you went 10 gas. That means that Ziggy has hurt his econ quite a bit to do this, and now the drone gets locked in. I think he wants to see whether it's going to be Wraith or if it's going to be like 2 factory Vulture run by, but I think because of how fast the factory was, it can really only ever be 2-port Wraith. So this is going to be a drone loss for him, and I think that's a big mistake, especially going for a 9 pool. He's already going to have a low drone count. I like the fact that he ended up only building what looks like 2 lings. This is at least going to force Ziggy to build 1 Marine, at least be honest a little bit, and not power to infinity and beyond. But look at that drone. I'm surprised it's still alive.
Yeah, and the thing is, Ziggy has been mining gas this entire time, and he's just going to build a starport in front of this drone. That's very suspect, because obviously, I mean, scouting is half the battle, and especially when you do these types of one base builds. Okay, I was really worried, because if he just builds 2 ports in front of that drone, that would have been a complete disaster. But I mean, maybe that's part of Ziggy's plan. You know, if the Zerg only scouts 1 port and probably sees the factory building, then maybe he doesn't think it's going to be 2-port. But the gig is already a bit up. I mean, a Wraith is going to be expected, and whether it's 1 Wraith or 2, you're still going to make Hydralisks. And probably the Hydra Den is going to be going down at the front there for Ziki any moment now. Otherwise, I mean, you know, like you said, Nyokin, that was a really fast gas. This Wraith timing is going to be quick. So it is going to be dangerous here a bit for the Hungarian Zerg player. But, I mean, he saw what was going on. Like, he knows there's no expansion. He knows this is a really fast starport. So I'd be surprised if he gets caught off guard by these Wraiths.
Yeah, we see the Hydrogen being placed. We also see the Spire being placed. So I'm curious if he's also going to get speed overlords, or what the real purpose of this Spire is. Of course, it seems like he's going to be going into Mutalisk, but maybe not. Maybe there's actually lurkers being upgraded. Remember, this is a live game, so you can't see the upgrades. Now, if you're Terran in this scenario, and obviously you suspect that Zerg expects this to be 2-port Wraith, like, what's your move to get back into this game? Are you just backstabbing? Are you just picking off overlords? Are you picking off drones? What does Terran need to do to kind of keep this Zerg in check?
Yeah, I don't know, Nayak. And I mean, the thing is, you can't really drastically deviate from this. So I feel like you just make your rates, you kill these overlords, and you just play standard. The thing is, it's not the kind of build where it's like, oh no. I feel like Zerg, for example, is a kind of race that can quickly adapt. Like, okay, you just saw my Spire, I'm just going to make Lurkers. Or you saw my Hydrogen, I'm going to make Mutalisks. Terran doesn't really function like that. So once the gig is up, all that means is that the Zerg player is kind of going to be more mentally prepared, more kind of build order prepared for what you're throwing at them. But as a Terran player, you can't really change it up too much. I mean, he did commit to these 2 ports. He should make at least 5 rates. And, against someone who's making... The thing is, he is playing against 2 hatch Mutalisks, and he knows it's only 2 hatcheries. So in this situation, you definitely can delay your command center and you can continue making rates, as opposed to, for example, if Sziky went for a 3rd hatchery and kept making Hydralisks, then the 2-port Wraithing player would want to try and take an expansion a bit earlier. But as is, I feel like Ziggy will want to go up to maybe that 7 to 8 Wraith count, and he will probably be making his command center in his main. But that being said, he could also put down a couple of racks and go for a bust.
Well, I have to point out, he put the add-on to his factory, which makes me think that if he had seen Hydras, he wanted to go into potential tank play. And, that kind of worries me, because that makes me think that he's not feeling too confident in potential micro. I was watching somebody play yesterday with Wraiths versus Hydras, and they have, I think, 1 or 2 more range than a Hydra. And he was just picking off Hydras nonstop without taking much damage. So there is potential to just murder Hydralisk despite going Wraiths. Now here come the cloaked Wraiths. I don't think the Overlords have speed yet. They are slow, but Mutalisks just instantly engage on top of those Wraiths, and one more volley will pick off one of them, I think. But it looks like both players are just going to back off for now. It's 7 Wraiths versus how many Mutalisks for Ziki?
A lot. 7. Well, as the 2-porting player, like, you don't really want to be looking for fights. You want to just go around and try and snipe drones and then run away. But, already Ziggy kind of wasting some of his cloak, taking a lot of damage. He is still making Wraiths. It doesn't look like he has a command center going. He is going to put down a couple of turrets at his natural, but he hasn't started his command center just yet. And this is extremely late, even for a 2-port build. And now Overlord speed has finished.
Oh, no.
And really, when the Zerg, this is going to be a good engagement though for Ziggy, because the Overlords are really far, and that's a lot of rates, so they can just completely shoot down these Mutalisks. But the Overlords are going to get in range to detect these rates, and turrets are going to be in position. But look, he's making so many turrets that Ziggy's just not going to have his natural anytime soon. And really, I mean, Sziky actually, the Zerg does have a lot of drones behind this, so this is definitely a situation that favors the Zerg player. And generally, okay, more shots getting taken onto those rates, and there's a tank there as well. This is really not a good situation to be in as Terran.
Well, the initial Wraith shots looked really good, but now Ziki is getting way more connections than Ziggy is, and he's dwindled down to about 6 Wraiths. Another big hit. Don't know if any Wraiths actually fell there. Yeah, 1 ended up falling down. Meanwhile, Ziggy's still holding strong with 10 Mutalisks. Sure, he cannot plow through all these turrets, but when he came in there and I think probably got a glimpse of the command center just starting, and meanwhile his 3rd base is going up, he's gonna be feeling really good. +1 weapon already done, so actually it looks like he really does just want to kill these turrets. The Wraiths are coming in. I think they're out of cloak, so they kind of just have to fight if they're gonna try and engage the Mutalisks. He takes out the Overlord, but like I said, the energy is lacking down to just 3 Wraiths now.
Yeah, I mean, losing your Wraiths there is disastrous, really, because behind this, there's no racks going. Only now I think he's adding the Academy there. No, Armory. So going into Valkyries, but I feel like it's just too little too late at this point. Everything has kind of crumbled for Terran, and once you lose your Wraith count and you're down to 3 Wraiths and you have no other production, that's it. Look, and now Sziky is just diving in, killing more Wraiths, killing a bunch of turrets, killing everything. These Mutalisks completely uncontested. The last of the Wraiths do go down. tanks going down, SCVs, long distance mining turrets, getting destroyed, and this is going to be it for the first game here. You know, Ziggy can still try and make some turrets, try to hold on, but the Mutalisk count is just overwhelming.
Yeah, the Mutalisk count is just way too much. Look at that Ling try and take on a tank by himself. The tank is going to come out victorious, but more Lings flooding across the map. He has so many Mutalisks. He's just right on top of the starport. The armory just finished, but, you know, Valkyries, we were talking about them yesterday. They're equal to a command center, right, Mihai? I don't even think he was building a Valkyrie that entire time. The starport ends up falling. Tank is going to fall, and that's going to be Ziggy tapping out. And Ziki, as expected, just has insane muta control and just picks apart Ziggy.
Yeah, and just completely stuffed that build from Ziggy. I mean, you can definitely go Valkyries, and they're definitely necessary in a situation where the Zerg is making Mutalisks, but you need to start your armory before you start your command center. You know, you have to really kind of get it going pretty early on, not like reactively go into it. And the tank was wholly unnecessary. I mean, you saw the Hydras out, and that makes the Terran a bit kind of, you know, they might suspect some kind of bust. But if you get that tank and there's no follow-up Hydras, I mean, it's just such a huge investment. So, you know, unfortunate there. Ziggy did try something, but Sziky with the complete shutdown. And that's going to be it for game one. Game two is going to be another TVZ between two kind of legendary BSL players.
Yes, we've got a BSL champion going up against one of the best BSL Zerg players, a finalist in Gorinich. Now, Gorinich had really good success versus the Protoss players, but ZVT, of course, is a whole other beast. I'm thinking back to previous games I've seen of Dandy versus Gorinich. Of course, this was a long time ago, though, so maybe Gorinich is up to skill in ZVT, but Dandy dominated him in one of the show matches of BSL where they were kind of testing out the maps. So I think in this particular matchup, if Dandy is in shape, I would favor him because he's just so rock solid. But in the past couple seasons, Gorinich has really been impressing. So it wouldn't shock me if he ends up taking down Dandy too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is anyone's game to win. Dandy a slight favorite for sure, but Gorinich extremely strong, and we've seen him have ZVT success in BSL before. So this is going to be a really exciting matchup. Now, what do you expect to see on Eclipse from either player?
We know that Marine Medic pressure in the early academy is quite popular these days, and also Zergs love to take a past third base. So I imagine Dandy will probably play something like that because he seems to play trendy builds. But Dandy can play it all. We saw Ziggy go for 2-Port Wraith. I know for a fact Dandy can play 2-Port Wraith. He can play mech. So if I'm going to make a prediction, I will say the fast academy style, but it is Dandy. He can do it all.
Yeah, no, that's totally right. And Dandy is also one of these players that can whip out the 2-Port Wraith, and quite often at that. But I kind of have to agree with you, Naokin. I've seen Dandy play recently TVZ, and he does seem to favor kind of just a very standard play. Of course, as we get the player cards, dude, these player cards just look so fresh. But yeah, Dandy, I mean, look at his history. BSL 4 winner, 5-6, 5th to 6th place. BSL 9 4th place, BSL 10 5th place. Absolutely amazing. Whereas, you know, even Gorinich has been playing for a long time. Season 8, what is that? 2nd place. Season 9, 3rd place. So really both veterans of the BSL tournaments.
Yeah, if you're making bets on either of these players, you're more than likely going to be winning those bets. So unfortunately, they're going to be facing off versus each other in a best of one, and one of them is going to have to go down into the losers match. And you know, even if they win, they got a monster waiting for them in the finals in Ziki. So it's going to be really hard for either of these players to actually make it through. I'm so sad that one of these players are going, well, not these two in particular, but one of the three, Ziki, Gorinich, and Dandy, are going to be just flat out gone from BSL in the round of 24.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happens with the groups of deaths. There's always going to be some very strong players going home, but you know, that is the nature of the beast. And again, I think this is going to be a good place for Gornish to kind of get back into the groove, get his mojo back. You know, BSL 10, he did finish quite high, but probably not as high as he would have liked. So this is going to be a chance for redemption here. And if Gornish can make it out of this group, I remember last season in BSL 10, though, he did make it out of didn't he make it out of the group of death of BSL 10? I'm gonna look this up because I do remember he was in an incredibly hard group. Let's see here. Gornish.
Well, our map
he was, yeah. Here's the thing. Oh, so this is what happened, Nyokin. Last season in the round of 16, he was also in Group D. Okay, actually, the game is ready, so we'll get back to it in a second. But Eclipse is going to be the map here. Gornish versus Dandy. Let's get it going.
In the top right, we have our blue Terran player. It is Dandy.
And in the bottom left, the red Zerg player from Russia. It is Gornish. Yeah, just quickly, again, sometimes, you know, Guy here can go on a rant and forget that we have to start the game. But Gornish last season, this was in the round of 16, so it was in like the round of 32. But he was also in Group D, and Group D was also the group of death. It was Oya, Sziky, Gornish, True Touch. And I remember he beat, I think he beat True Touch, right? Or something. He beat, let's see here. Yeah, he did beat True Touch, and he narrowly lost 1-2 versus Sziky. So kind of literally in the same situation where he's in an extremely strong group. And I think this is going to be his time to basically get vengeance, you know, get that retribution going. And if he makes it through this group, it'll be amazing.
Do you remember, guys?
Yes.
There was a game on Eclipse, ZVZ, Super Gosu Battle in the bottom right. ZZZero Sziky versus Gornish in the last season. It was a decider match.
Oh yeah, it was on Eclipse. So Zero reminding us of the epic game Sziky had versus Gornish on Eclipse for the decider match, and it was like a big Mutalisk battle. They kind of just clashed at the end there. So really epic games. But yeah, again, Gornish, this is his time to kind of make up for that last year, for that last season rather.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about what Dandy has done recently. And I remember he beat Bonnet in RCG, didn't he? I think he did. Like, Dandy got second in RCG. I think I'm remembering that correctly.
Right.
So I was thinking about whether he's in shape these days. And I think the answer is going to have to be yes, because if you're taking down players like Bonnet, like, you definitely got to be in form to do that. So I think that Gornish is going to have a bit of trouble here versus Dandy. But Gornish, as we mentioned, he's an all-star of BSL. He definitely has the capability to do that. Now, I'm paying close attention to what Dandy's doing because we see a lot of delayed mech play. We see a lot of like Valkyrie play. But look at this. Gornish is going for a 3-hatch play, but he hasn't placed it just yet.
Yeah, I mean, with that delayed gas there, you can see the minerals are going up. He is going to get the hatchery at another base, but honestly, as a Terran player, this is it's quite easy to spot. And you can see Dandy is just going to go straight to that third base. This isn't meant to be tricky at all. It's just a different style where Zerg has access to this third base faster, but has to spend quite a lot to defend it early on in terms of getting extra sunkens and delaying their tech. So, you know, Dandy, not fooled by it, because the thing is, you come in with the scout and you see that essentially the gas and the pool are not in sync, and so really that's the difference between a 2-hatch and a 3-hatch kind of gas timing. Dandy does spot it. He is going for an academy, so he is trying to essentially go for a quick stim to pressure Zerg into making 4 to 5 sunks, you know, 2 to 3 at the main, 2 at the third base. And that'll equalize the economic advantage that Zerg gets from having access to this third base early on.
Yeah, you really only have two options to defend this third base. Either you're building a ton of lanes to try and just overwhelm the army, or you're building sunken. So I like this move from Dandy. Now, as a Terran player, I hate this build. And the reason I hate it is because the Marine Medic push, sure, it forces out sunkens, but they still get the third base. They still get that third gas. And every time I run into this build, you know what it is, Mihai?
Lurkers?
It's that Ultra build, man. It's Ultra, man. They always rush the Evolution Chamber. And because I go for the Fast Academy, my +1 is not exactly fast. So I always feel like, okay, I forced the Sunkens, but what did that really get me? Because now I'm behind in upgrades. Now, sure, we don't know what Gornich is going to opt into just yet. But if I see an Evolution Chamber, I think we are going to see fast Ultraman. Now, this is a fast move out. It's so fast there's not even medics. So I don't know what this is.
Yeah, I mean, he actually went for the fire bats before the medics. Really interesting decision here. The thing is, like, without medics, it's really hard to bust sunks. So I feel like if those were medics, it'd be a much more dangerous move out. But at the same time, I don't think it would be enough anyway to bust the sunk. So at the end of the day, honestly, it doesn't really make any difference whether you get the medics first or the fire bats first. It's going to force these sunkens from Zerg, and that's all the Terran really is looking to do at this point. Spire is a bit over halfway done here. The Lings from Gornich are moving around. They are going to try and poke into this natural, and the second, another fire bat. Now, this is a lot of gas to be spending on units early on. It does delay your tech as Terran, especially in this early mid game. Kind of your resources are a bit taxed.
Oh my
but
gosh.
That's a lot of links.
That is a ton of links. I was looking at what was unfolding, and only 3 Sunkens. You feel like that's a win for you as Zerg, but now he's built so many links. He's going to try and engage this army. The Fire Bat is in the front. They're dealing so much damage into the front links. Look at these Fire Bats. He killed almost nothing.
Yeah, absolutely terrible engagement from the Zerg player, and Nyokin losing his mind. His green screen popped down yet again. But Dandy is going to get an absolutely amazing trade, and that was a huge investment for Gornich. You can see he's super far behind in the food count, in the supply count. And what is that? Oh my god, a misclick from Gornich. 6 Scourge pop out. Those aren't Mutalisks, and Dandy's just gonna run in here, kill the Sunken, and he is gonna kill this hatchery for free. These Mutalisks are just not, there's just not enough Mutalisks to deal with these Marines. Dandy is focus firing the Mutalisks just well enough. And GG, oh my god. What a game.
Well, that's a bit unlucky for Gornich, because Scourge, not exactly what you want to have versus Marine Medic and Fire Bats. And I thought that the Ling attack was gonna go very well for him, because a lot of times you're not even watching for that. Like, you see Sunkens and you're like, oh, well, I can just like move across the map. I don't really have to pay attention. There's no Mutalist there. But those Fire Bats in the front just massacred those Lings. I think he killed like 1 Marine, and that was it. And then to also not build 3 Mutalisks there? If he had the 3 Mutalisks, I think he would have held. But unfortunately, a bit of a misstep there, and Gornich is going to be knocked down to the losers bracket very quickly.
That's really unfortunate, honestly. Like, those links, that engagement can go in so many ways. I mean, the Zerg can win by a landslide, the Terran can win by a landslide. They can both trade, and unfortunately, that time, the engagement, the angle just quite wasn't there for Gornich, or maybe it was just there for Dandy, and Dandy had a slick kind of move back. I mean, Dandy, the Fire Bats, I don't know, man. Fire Bats just killed everything. But the big problem was that also Gornich fat fingered a bunch of Scourge. I mean, really, it is just that. And when you see 6 Scourge pop out at a hatchery, you know that's going to be devastating for the Zerg player. So Dandy is going to get a nice win there. And we're going to get a follow-up TVZ here. Dandy vs Sziky, which is actually a rematch from BSL10, like the later stages, I think.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to those games. I think I remember a Benzene game where Ziki had less units, or less mutants, and still won the fight. Is that right? Or, no. it was Gorinich got the faster expansion, yet still Ziki had more units. So regardless, Ziki came out on top last season. We'll see if Gorinich can get redemption versus him if they end up facing each other. But for now, it's going to be Ziki versus Dandy, a ZVT, and our map is going to be Sylphid. Now, every time I see Dandy on this map, he's just super, super strong. And now getting a solid win versus Gorinich, you know he's going to be feeling pretty good. Of course, Ziki coming off of a solid win, but what are your thoughts on this particular matchup?
Well, you remember BSL10, what happened was we were in the round robin stage, and Sziky and Dandy were kind of both like at the bottom of the standings.
Oh, yes.
And they both kind of needed a win against each other. And Dandy kind of came out on top there from, you know, kind of just standard play. Both players were just playing standard. Now on Sylphid is quite a strong Zerg map. Because the bases are really open, Mutalisks have a lot of entry points, and because there's no ramp for Terran, the natural can get assaulted quite easily early on through like mass slings or whatever, so the early game's kind of tricky to navigate, and that's why you see some Terrans even go mech on Sylphid because of those problems caused especially by 2-hatch Mutalisks. So we'll have to see, but Dandy, you know, I think he's just gonna whip out again the 2-Rocks play, and he's probably gonna put on some early pressure with that early academy and keep Sziky honest. And Sziky, he might even go for a 3-hatch. I mean, we see Sziky play this matchup a lot, and he doesn't necessarily go for kind of the meta build order 2-hatch variation. He kind of likes to do his own thing.
Yeah, now I want to point out Sylphid is one of the maps where you can wall. I know you're not a big fan of walling, but that is a thing. So we could see potentially some support Wraith from Dandy. We are getting a glimpse at the... Yeah, we're getting a glimpse at the profiles again. First Terran, only 20%, but again, the sample size is very low. Look at the MMRs for both of the players. 2,400 for Dandy. Looks like about 2,400 for Ziki. Two of the very top players of the foreign scene. So at least one of these two are going to make it out. That's nice because they are definitely two players that could go very deep in BSL.
Yeah, and like you pointed out, actually, Nayokin, Sylphid is the kind of map where you can wall, so we might even see a 2-port Wraith build from Dandy, especially on this map. We'll have to see. But look at Dandy. I mean, the past seasons, he's just like we were talking about earlier, such an incredible player with so much history in this tournament. And Sziky, of course, he was a very top player for like a long time, kind of since 2010. But yeah, the map is ready. The game is going to start here. Sylphid in the winners match. Sziky versus Dandy. Who gets first place? Let's get into it.
All right, in the blue, our Peruvian hopeful. It is Dandy.
And in the red, the Hungarian Zerg. It is Sziky. So yeah, Sylphid. Yeah, no. Go ahead.
I know a lot of people complain about the top position. Now, I'm too bad at the game to be blaming spawns, but what are your thoughts on the top base? You know, a lot of players I've heard say this is almost undefendable if you go Marine Medic. So does that obligate Dandy to go for, you know, delayed mech, 2-port Wraith, Goliath?
Yeah, I don't know, Nayokin. I mean, maybe I'm bad. I'm really bad too. So, and I'm not quite sure, to be completely honest with you. I think you can definitely go bio on this map. It's just a bit harder to defend. If there's and Dandy, I just don't think he's much of a mech player. So, if anything, I wouldn't be surprised. Well, he's not walling his choke. So this is definitely not going to be 2-port. I think he's just going to be playing standard.
Yeah, I also think that he's just going to play standard, even though I despise Sylphid for the naturals because of how hard they are to defend. I think Dandy is somebody that will just play Marine Medic, just rely on his amazing Marine Medic control. If this was me, I mean, if you watch my stream, I'm going ball free every game simply because I'm just so sick of these players building mass Mutalisks. And especially on a map like Zilfid, where you can just almost go unpunished at the natural. But it looks like Dandy is probably just going to play normal. We've got 12 hatch coming in for Ziki, so he's not going to be aggressive like we saw versus Ziki. And 12 has come and gone, so this is not going to be a tech play from Dandy.
Yeah, looks so standard from both players. Ziki with that 12 hatch, of course Dandy with the 11 racks here. Scouting going on. The workers will high-five each other in the middle of the map. But yeah, I mean, not much to say here. I'm just looking to see whether or not... It looks like Ziki actually did get his gas. So he's going to go for that 2-hatchery play. The drone is going to come in here. And the drone, of course, with its range, can harass the workers a bit. But none of that is going to happen this game. Dandy, now he does scout, but because there's a drone... I'm surprised he's actually going to try and put down his command center. Generally, when the drone comes into your base, you want to get that second depot out because this command center is going to be delayed anyway.
Yeah, this is not going to be a 15cc that a lot of players go for. It is just going to be a standard 17cc. Now I'm watching the racks. It doesn't look like it's blinking from Dandy, so he is going to be cutting the Marine. That means he's probably going to be getting a second barracks. There it is. So I imagine that, you know, last game was so short, we didn't really get to see how the build unfolds. I don't think he's going to, you know, deviate at all. I expect to see probably the same thing, which was 3 racks with a pretty fast +1. You know, I was talking about how when you go for the 2 racks, usually the +1 weapon is delayed quite a bit, but it looks like Dandy has a modified version where he gets it pretty quickly at least. So that's what I'm expecting. Now, first few lings come out and instantly pop that SCV. So now Ziki has the potential to put down a hydrogen if he wants, and this is also going to obligate Dandy to put down a bunker. So really nice pickoff right there.
I really like this from Ziki. This is a lot of lings. Basically, he made only lings since the pull finish, so it's going to force the bunker, but the bunker is quite slow, and I don't think it's going to be out in time for these lings. So Dandy looks like he's actually pulling a couple of SCVs that are going to be transferred anyway, but he has to control this just right. The lings are getting on top of the Marines, but the bunker finishes just in time. That was really fortunate, except Ziki is also going to get a lot of these SCVs. So he forces a bunker, he kills 2 SCVs, almost 3, kills another Marine for only 6 lings. This is incredible value for the Zerg player. You can see the lair's already finished. He's going to have a Spire coming out. This is a really, really good spot to be in as a Zerg.
Yeah, and he also gets a scout and sees the academy just now starting at 4:15. That is not ideal for the Terran. That means the range is going to be considerably delayed. Stim, you know, not a huge deal, but the big issue is the range being delayed. His mutas are going to be able to, you know, deal a ton of damage onto that natural without really taking much fire back. eBay starting from Danny, this, like I said, is probably going to be very similar to what we saw on Eclipse. And I'm looking at what Ziki's doing, whether he has a drone out in the center of the map. There it goes. It's just now being sent out. It looks like the SCB is just barely going to miss it, but at least he does get into the main and scout the Spire, I guess, so he's not going to be worried about a Hydra Den. But overall, Ziki in complete control so far, and he's going to get his third base up pretty much for free.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot stress just how much damage those 6 lings did. You know, when you get that bunker really early as Terran, it really cuts into your build order. And generally that bunker represents 2 SCVs, but he also lost 2 SCVs on top of that. And he wasn't able to start mining from his natural, so really a huge setback. And, you know, it might not seem like that big of a deal, but it is represented by the fact that Ziki, like you said, Nyokin, does have that 3rd hatchery going already. And because Dandy doesn't have the best scouting information, he has to get those comm stats early. So even more SCVs not being built, and no turrets out just yet, but the Spire is done. The eBay is there, though. He needs to start turrets now. I mean, they're still not going up.
Looks like Dandy has just 4 Marines. That's a skimpy defense. Even one of the Marines got picked off by the lings outside of the natural. So Dandy's got to be very careful to lose a couple Marines in the early stages and now only have 3 racks production. We saw Ziki in the previous game ended up going +1 weapon. So that means that he wants to go for a killing move. He's not going to try and stall the game out with +1 armor. So Dandy's got to be very careful to not lose an excessive amount of Marines here. Otherwise, he might just get overrun. So let's see what Ziky's got his eyes set on. Looks like so far, Dandy's airtight. Mutas can't poke in anywhere. But the third hatch is about to finish for Ziky, and he's going to have 3 guys coming in pretty soon.
Yeah, this is not too much defense, though. The initial Mutalisks from Zerg are not going to be able to knock down 1 turret, but after these 6 Mutas, then come 8, then come 10, and this turret defense is not quite up to scrap. You really need a couple more. These two, see, look, Ziky's actually gonna find the weak spot. If he picks off that northern turret, then this entire mineral line will be open for him. But it looks like he's just ignoring it, and he's gonna kill these SCVs. And you know, looking back at Ziky's base, we did see the early Hydralisk then, so it doesn't look like he wants to commit to a lot of Mutalisk play. You know, just looking at the turn rate, it is 16, so he could, but it looks like Ziky is the type of player that's a bit more comfortable with rushing into lurkers and using these Mutalisks to buy him time. But I feel like if he was more aggressive here with Mutalisks, he definitely had an opportunity to do a massive amount of damage, especially at the natural. But it looks like instead he is going to be playing that more passive style that he's known for. And this is a bit scary from Dandy because that is a lot of Marines. And again, when you get this Hydralisk then early on and get the lurkers out, like you can see, Ziky still doesn't have a full control group of Mutalisks. It's only 9 Mutas, not 11. So there you go. Only just now does he get a nice control group here.
Yeah, well, he's dealt so much damage in the early stages. I think he realized that he doesn't need to build an excessive amount of Mutalisks. I liked how he built 7 because that allowed him to one-shot SCVs every time he came into the mineral line. +1 weapon has completed for Dandy. So Ziky's got to be very careful with his Mutalisks. 2 of them are already damaged. He's down to 9 now. 4 Sunkens for Ziky. I guess he's really worried about this small bio army because he doesn't have that many Mutalisks. 4 turrets, there's no way he's going to have any success with the Mutalisks there. And Dandy's teching pretty well. He's got his factory already done. Starport's coming in. So he's kind of navigated the early to mid game pretty well despite the setback in the early stages.
Yeah, and Ziky doesn't have a Queen's Nest just yet. This is really good. He's struggling with just 1 control group. Okay, only now does the Queen's Nest come, but the Queen's Nest should basically be... Like, the Queen's Nest is the Zerg's counterpart to the factory in terms of getting up to Hive Tech and Starports matching up with Defiler Mount. So it's very late when you start your Queen's Nest and the Terran has his Starport basically halfway done. And he's just struggled with a small group of Marines. Like, generally, that was like 10 Marines and 3 medics. That should be dealt with by this stage of the game. And Ziky kind of just is giving so much space to Dandy and giving so much respect to those Marines when really they should be dead by now. So Dandy is actually pulling ahead quite significantly. Finally, Ziky is going to abuse this turret positioning, but it's a little bit too late, and you can see he doesn't have that many Mutalisks anymore. So now Ziky has absolutely no map control. He has no presence on the map. He has to... That third is going to be so weak for so long because the Nidus Canal is going to be very late. I'm interested to see if Dandy actually goes for a siege tank here or not, because that could actually punish both the front and the third base.
Well, Ziky is doing a pretty good job with just these 4 Mutalisks to get as many SCVs as possible. I think it is going to be a tank push because I did see the add-on to the factory, and I know Dandy scanned the Queen's Nest time. So he knows that the Defilers are nowhere near being done, and he is going to move out. It looks like he has 2 tanks already, and because there's not an overwhelming amount of Mutalisks anymore, it's not like he can really poke down these tanks with the Mutas either. So he's going to have to rely on some sneaky lurkers, but they've already been spotted. And I think that unless Ziky can get a very good engagement with Ling Lurker, he might just die here.
Yeah, I mean, this is perfect from Dandy. Honestly, Ziky still has some time. Well, that's the second tank now, so this sunken line is going to die, and Ziky did lose a lot of those Mutalisks, so only now does he get up another decent group going to try and snipe tanks, but it's a bit too late, and you can see the Filer Mound Oh, he's actually just going Greater Spire. He knows he doesn't have enough time for Defilers, but I don't think he's going to have enough time to morph Guardians at this rate. He's really in a bit of a pickle, and it's all thanks to basically not making the Queen's Nest on time. And Dandy, I feel like he is going to eventually just continuously reinforce this position, and once he clears out enough of these Sunkens, and once he starts damaging the Lurkers, he's just going to stim in and kill Zziky. I mean, I don't know how Zerg defends this.
Yeah, and look at the Marine control moving back and forth, covering the tanks, and a vessel is coming in. This is before the Greater Spire is finished, so if an Irradiate goes off, it's going to soften up all those meters. Looks like Dandy's decided that he's got more than enough to go in. He's got +1 weapon, remember. He's trying to bulldoze in here. I see that the tanks are going to knock down the last Sunken. The Lurkers are in vision, so he knocks down the Lurker too, and I think Dandy might just win right here. Oh, the Irradiate is perfect.
Yeah, Irradiate right on top of that Mutilous Clump. The tanks are completely demolishing the natural at this point, and Dandy is going to eventually win this game. There's really not much Zerg can do at this point. I mean, the thing is, he's not even buying time for a Defiler Mount. He's buying time for Guardians, and even if these Guardians clear out this position, what are they going to do? Like, fly across the map? The Flying Crabs, they're not very fast, Nyokin.
They are not very fast, and they've been spotted, and now that he knows there's only one Lurker, he could try and stem for it. But look at the medics. They have almost no energy, but instead he still opts for it. It's only 4 Guardians. He's trying to focus down these Guardians, and with the first one falling, second and third falling, I think this is... Oh, actually, they do pop out. So maybe Zziky will be able to hold, but more reinforcements coming across the map.
Yeah, but even if he holds, I mean, he's down to 35 supply. He has no second base. And generally, the third base isn't the base that's most saturated. And there's the GG. So Dandy makes it out first place in the group, and Zziky is going to go down into the final match, and he is going to be waiting for whoever wins between Ziggy and Gornich.
Yeah, and Dandy just so solid. I like how he scanned the main. That's something that I forget to do, to check for the Queen's Nest timing, and he noticed that it was late, so he goes for that tank push, and Zerg just didn't have anything. So really nicely done from Dandy, and it's a bit unlucky for Zziky because the early stages of the game went so well for him. It looked like he was just going to kind of run away with it. He got his third up, didn't take any damage.
Yeah.
His Mutilus did a decent amount of damage while also only committing to like 7 or 8. So it was, everything was going perfectly for him. Maybe like a drone kind of just didn't build the Queen's Nest, and he didn't realize, that happens quite often. So that's very unlucky for him.
Well, I mean, the real problem is that he just gave so much space to Dandy, like for no reason really. I mean, Dandy kind of only had one turret at the main, a couple turrets main, couple turrets at the natural, but not really covering everything properly. But Zziky's not the type of player that builds up to 11 Mulisk really quick and pressures. And then finally, when Dandy pushed out on the map with the basically 10 Marines and 3 medics, I mean, yes, initially they're scary, but Zerg should be able to whittle that down with no problem at all, especially if they're not reinforced. And it's not like Dandy was consistently rallying his racks to that group of Marines. So Zziky kind of just, instead of killing that group and instead of harassing the natural, just sat back, gave Terran all the space in the world. And that, coupled with the fact that he just didn't build his Queen's Nest on time, led to exactly what we saw there. So kind of unfortunate there, but Dandy, of course, an extremely strong player, and still Zziky has really good chances of getting out of this group. But before we get into that game, it is going to be Ziggy versus Gornich. Now, okay, actually, we're going to take a really quick break before we get into this game. So don't go anywhere.
Welcome back. We just saw Dandy move out in first place to make it out of the group of death, and now we're going to be going into Ziggy versus Gorinich. Both players had unfortunate first games. I know Gorinich is definitely not happy about how his games went. First, the Lings were a disaster, and then the Scourge being built instead of the Mutalisk. Just really nothing going for him. But Ziggy, he's also looking for a bit of redemption. I liked his Wraith control in the initial stages, but then a couple botched attempts kind of snowballed the game. So we'll see if either of these players have gotten it together. And because if they haven't, they're going to be gone. Remember, it is best of one. And then regardless of who wins, they've got the monster waiting for them in the elimination match.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I think the map's going to be polypoid, so it's not really a two-port map, though you can go two-port on polypoid. I'm interested to see what Ziggy has prepared in this game, and you know, if I were a betting man, it's probably gonna be mech. But I wouldn't be surprised if he throws in something like a 2-factory vulture or something like that. But yeah, definitely, again, a slight underdog here. Gorinich, I mean, Gorinich is a monster in ZVT. You know, we've seen his ZVT before, and once he gets to the late game, he just wins. But sometimes his mid game, early game can be a bit suspect, and we saw that against Dandy. So, but the difference between Ziggy and Dandy is that I don't think Ziggy's gonna put on as much pressure as Dandy did.
Yeah, we'll have to see what Ziggy opts into. I was reading some chat and people were saying that Ziggy loves to play mech style, and I think mech in general is a good choice. But if the map's going to be polypoid, mech doesn't have good map control for a lot of the game, and polypoid is one of the maps that has so many bases that Zerg can easily be on 6, 7, 8 base, and it doesn't matter how strong 3/3 tanks are. If you just don't have the resources, eventually Zerg will win. And also it kind of plays to Gorinich's strength. We see how well he can maxwell in ZVT. Once it starts going into mech matches in ZVT, it's kind of like playing ZVT where you're just pumping up Hydroling Defiler almost the entire game. So I think that if Ziggy wants to play polypoid, I'd like to see like a bio opener and then maybe like delayed mech or like, you know, mass tanks with bio support. So I'm curious to see what he's going to pull out. Our map is going to be polypoid. The players are ready. So let's see who's the first person eliminated from the group of them. Righty, in the red, in the bottom right, we have our European hopeful. It is Gorinich.
And in the top left, it is the Polish Terran. It is Ziggy. Now, Ziggy has done pretty well for himself ever since he kind of transitioned more into Brood War. You know, this guy is a StarCraft 2 player. I think he still actively sometimes plays StarCraft 2. But he has made it into the past couple BSL seasons. You know, BSL 8 and 10 he did play in. So really kind of a nice journey for him, and you know, I suspect we're gonna continue seeing more of him in the future. I know he sometimes tweets about, I'm gonna win BSL this year, so it's really nice to have that type of kind of drive from a player. But he does have his work cut out for him against, again, a legend of the scene.
You know, we met Ziggy at DreamHack in Montreal. He was there, and he did pretty decently. I think you and him faced off, but it is cool to see a lot of players. You know, he's from Poland, so for him to travel all the way to DreamHack to do that is really cool. I enjoyed DreamHack. It's the first time we met, You know, I was intending to meet one of your friends, and apparently he's too good for that. He didn't make time, but that was a fun experience. Tai2 was there. Got to meet Tim. It's Tim, you know, the CPL All-Star that is now, you know, pushing A rank and S rank. Father was there. TT1 was there. Just was there. It was really cool to meet everybody at DreamHack.
Yeah, man, that was a really great weekend, and you know, I feel like we can start getting a bit more hopeful now. It seems like obviously, you know, we've been having a hard time with the pandemic, and it's been affecting everyone, but it looks like things are starting to look a bit better now, and honestly, I think we can start looking forward to more StarCraft events, because those are so much fun. You know, from now, like a year from now, I'm sure something, you know, some events might be occurring. Some people might start playing on LAN more. Those are always amazing events. And yeah, we did meet Ziggy there. He is quite a nice chap, and hopefully we'll get to meet more players at some point.
Well, we did get to see what Ziggy was up to. That was a 12 gas opener, so a bit different from the Eclipse game, I have to point out, because that was 10 gas back then. So I don't think that this is going to be some hardcore one base play. Meanwhile, Gorinich also deviating. He did a 3 hatch play on Eclipse. Now he's just going into the standard 2 hatch play that everybody runs into if you are a Terran player. So we'll have to see how Ziggy's going to react to this, because 111 was popular for a long time, but now it's kind of faded away. So I'm thinking that this might just be Goliath.
Yeah, it might be Goliath. I mean, it is an expansion, so we'll have to see. Generally, I mean, he is still mining a lot of gas. Is that an armory? Yeah, that is an armory. So it is going to be Goliath. How do you feel about mech on this map?
Well, as I said, I think of all maps, if you're going to play mech, this is not the ideal one, simply because of how many bases Zerg has. However, there are advantages to Polypoid playing mech, because if you look at almost all of the bases, they're high ground for Terran. Like top middle's high ground, the middle only's high ground, mid left will be high ground. So there is that argument to be made that once you secure almost any base, you're going to be trading super effectively. Now these 2 Lings get in and going to get off a crucial scout, because it's no longer going to be guessing games for him. He's going to see that it is factory play, and surprisingly, a Marine beat a Ling. That doesn't happen every day one-on-one, but 1 Ling survives and is going to be annoying and deny this command center. Look, it's almost going to complete, but not, I don't think it is.
Yeah,
oh my god, 14-10.
CV does go down, but I mean, it doesn't finish, but it's so close to finishing that you can already just transfer the SCV, so it's really not that big of a deal for Terran. Of course, the bigger deal is just losing that SCV there. Meanwhile, Gorinich does have his 3rd hatchery there. Gorinich has a nice response to the build that Ziggy's doing. Spire is on the way. You can see that, you know, in this situation, Zerg is delaying that 2nd gas to be able to get the 3rd hatchery. This is the kind of 2.5 hatch response that Zerg has against most factory openings. And he's got a lot of drones, so definitely nice build order here from Gorinich. We'll have to see. It doesn't look like he's taking his 2nd gas just yet, so it's very possible he'll be trying to get a 4th hatchery really fast.
Yeah, to me, this looks like it's going to be Hydra Man, like 5 hatch Zerg versus Protoss style, and this doesn't surprise me at all. Can the Vulture get here in time to deny this 3rd base? It would be amazing if he could, because he also has mines, so that means that the Overlord would have to come over to get... Oh, he gets the drone! So the mine... Oh, the Mutalisk pop out just barely in time to make sure that that will not deny a secondary drone, so at least that's going for Gorinich, but overall that was a nice snipe from Ziggy with that single Vulture.
Yeah, and still no 2nd gas there for Gorinich, so playing extremely economically here. I do like that. I really do like that. He does have such a strong economy, and meanwhile Ziggy, I feel like he's overreacting with turrets. He has 3 turrets, but I mean, this is a Goliath build. The Goliaths are what kill the Mutalisks, you know? You don't really need to make turrets if the turrets are really only there for the super early stage where you only have like 4 Goliaths and no range on them. But once you get Goliaths, there's just no need to keep making turrets. And looks like the armory's not going. Did he finish at 7 minutes? He has the upgrade, right? No, he doesn't. So this is absolutely terrible. This is disastrous. If you don't start your upgrades with mech, what are you doing?
Yeah, a big misstep from Ziggy there. I don't think the turrets was a big deal. It looked like he only built 4. I think that's decent. But yeah, the lack of upgrades is really painful. You definitely want to have +1 armor versus the Hydras, because you know Gorinich is going to be getting +1 weapon. Your Goliaths and tanks will not melt, but definitely die much faster. Now, this is an 8 Goliath move out, and it's hitting at this weird point in the game where there's, what, 6 Mutalisks out and not that many Hydras, so maybe he'll be able to find some success. Couple Sunkens are trying to complete, but they're not. I don't think they're going to get up, but looks like there will most likely be just a little bit too many Hydras. Maybe not, actually.
We'll see. I mean, this is a good timing here from Ziggy, but he doesn't have the upgrades, and the Hydra Mutalisk composition with the Sunkens finishing are completely going to shut this down. And I mean, we're going to reset the Terran army, and honestly, Gorinich did not take too much damage there. And again, the problem is that Ziggy does not have any upgrades on the way. So what is his timing going to be? What is his plan here? Just now the armory starts spinning. He is going up to 5 factories, which generally means you're going for a timing attack. But that timing attack is centered around the 1-1 upgrades. So I don't know, man. He's in such trouble. Meanwhile, Gorinich does have 4 bases going. He has 5 hatcheries total, so it's kind of like a similar econ situation that you would see in ZVP, and that's exactly where Zerg wants to be, to start just pumping out Hydras. So I think he has all the tools at his disposal to completely smack down this attack from Terran that's going to come in the next couple minutes.
Well, I like how he's modified his build. He's going into double add-ons, so he's going to start pumping out a ton of tanks. We know that Gorinich right now is at least showing that he's going mass Hydralist, but there could be a Mutaswitch coming at some point. Evolution Chamber is done for Gorinich, so he should be matching the +1, I assume, weapon from Ziggy. Oh, he already has +1 weapon, so he might have +2 versus +0 armor. That's a real possibility. And these Hydras are going to be hitting so hard. And Ziggy, because he doesn't have rushed upgrades, because he doesn't have a 3rd command center, this is probably going to be maybe 1 or 2 attacks, and that's it. So Gorinich really just has to make sure he takes a favorable engagement. He's got 4 bases. There's no need for him to push the issue. Just make sure you engage like a big angle or big flank, and he should be fine. Queen's Nest coming in, so it looks like he may be going for some queens also.
Yeah, queens would be really nice. I mean, they're incredibly strong in this matchup, but to be completely honest with you, Nayak, I feel like queens are more of an option against the turtle mech style, the 3-base, the 4-base mech style, where they try and take their 3rd command center off of 3 factories and get into really quick upgrades. But against this timing attack style, there's, you know, just make a lot of Hydras. And again, Gorinich does have the economy for it, and he should know that he does. So hopefully he doesn't try to go for some kind of counterattack play, and he just man fights this army, because again, the upgrades are severely lacking. And look, there's a lot of vultures with this attack, but really you want to have almost no vultures. Like the only time you build vultures is when you're trying to save some gas for vessels or upgrades. But if you're doing the straight up attack that Terran's doing off of 2 base, every single unit coming out of the factory should be a Goliath or a tank. These vultures, though, they are going to slow down the pace of the game. They're going to run around and try and look for harassment and bother the Zerg. But generally, you're doing this when you're taking a base as Terran and you're on 3 base or something and kind of massing up behind it. But if you're doing this timing move, like really all you're doing is just slowing the timing down and giving Zerg that much more time to make units.
Well, here comes Ziggy. It looks like he's going to try and clear out some of these overlords. I like the overlord spread. He got vision over the entirety of the center of the map, scouted out those vultures that could have easily ran into the mineral only and dealt quite a bit of damage. Command center going up for Ziggy, so he's not all in with this, but I did get a glimpse of a couple queens out already for Gorinich. I do know that Ziggy has scanned, so he may have scanned it and now feels obligated to attack. Supplies are even though, and generally at this stage of the game, if Zerg is even, they will easily wipe out the Terran army. Looks like Zerg is posturing for a potential backstab. Ziggy is completely out of position right now, but at least he has spotted it.
Yeah, and this is still quite a big army from Terran. You know, don't get it mistaken, Mayakin. But you know, if Gorinich kind of maneuvers around and finds the optimal engagement, I mean, he is buying time for these queens. Okay, so this makes sense now. Like, I was wondering why hasn't Zerg taken a fight just yet, and that's why. Queens are on the map, but they're gonna. I mean, Broodling is 150 energy now. It's a long time before you can get it out. And that is around 10 to 12 to, I don't know, it is a lot of queens, a lot of supplies. So his main army is not that strong. He does have +2 attack on the Hydralisk, so they're going to completely obliterate mech units, but 125 energy and counting on the queen. Still not quite there yet. Gorinich is going to go for a counterattack. This is looking scary now because really, I don't think this counter is going to do anything, and Ziggy's getting into this killer position. The thing is, that high ground next to him, but Gorinich isn't even there. He can't give up this high ground. It's going to help him a lot in this defense.
This is a smart move. He needs to turn around. Definitely do not go for the counterattack. The queens should have energy within 10 seconds, and he has enough queens to pop every single tank right there, and then it will just be exposed Goliaths and Vultures going up against +2 weapon Hydralisk. There's no chance of Terran ever winning that type of fight. Now here come those queens. Overlords are spotting. The Goliaths are out of position, so they're not going to be able to pick off any of these queens. There go 5 tanks in an instant. 6-1 going down, and with those tanks going down, that's going to be Ziggy's BSL hope down the drain quite quickly.
Yeah, that's going to be it. You know, I mean, Ziggy is going to keep playing it out. He is on 2 base, but he just lost his entire army and traded against nothing. You can see Zerg is ahead 20 supply, which should never really be the case in this matchup. He does have a 3rd command center coming in. He does have a 4th command center building, but the Zerg units are running across the map. I mean, it looks like this game is going to go on for a bit, but it is a tough situation to be in as Terran.
Yeah, he is taking top middle. That is a gas base, so if he can stabilize, he will be able to pump out more tanks. I did notice that his starport just started, so +2 weapon nowhere in sight. He will be starting that, you know, maybe like 1 or 2 minutes from now. Meanwhile, Gorinich is taking his 5th base. Mineral only is going to get up and running for Ziggy, so at least he is transitioning into the mid game. He's going to have killer econ, but still, there's no answer to the queen. They just need another 3 minutes to get the energy. Sure, that's a long time, but now they've probably, you know, regenerated maybe about 70 or so energy. That could have been a huge connection right there with that one mine with the Hydralisk. Turn around and snipe it. 40 supply lead for Gorinich. We do see that there are about 10 queens out hide coming in, so he's going to start getting the powerful +3 upgrades, Adrenaline and Plague and Dark Swarm pretty soon too.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is though, honestly, Hive isn't so consequential in this situation as a bunch of Hydralisks are coming in here at Ziggy's mineral only. Ziggy is going to try and defend this. He does have a nice screen for the tanks, but that's only 4 tanks. They do have 1-1. Hydralisks are going to get pushed back for a second here. The queens are going to basically regen up though, so another volley of broodlings is coming up in just a bit. Now, as I was saying, Hive really is more important for just the upgrades. Defilers don't really help against mech. Ultralisks don't really help against mech. And even, you know, Cracklings aren't really good. Like, basically, once you commit to Hydra Queen, you're going to stick to Hydra Queen. And it is a really strong composition. I mean, Queens are incredible in dealing with mech, but you know, I mean, Ziggy, he might have a chance if he holds on, gets his upgrades going, and maybe eventually gets up to vessels or wraiths to deal with the queens. Maybe he can grind it out in like an epic kind of like 40-minute game where he slowly splits the map. But that is a tall order, and with these queens here, I mean, Gornich is going to have an attack coming soon where basically he can delete nine tanks and just A-move his Hydralisk, so we'll have to see if Ziggy can hold on.
Yeah, we do have a 30 supply lead for Gornich. He's posturing on the top side, making sure that Terran cannot take that side of the map. The problem with queens is that they come in and they just don't die. It would be different if you trade a queen for a tank, but the fact that they end up surviving every single time is what makes them a nightmare. To me, there's only two answers to it. It's Wraith, Valkyrie, and that's it. Sure, you can go EMP and try and get a Hail Mary, and that might be what Ziggy wants to go for. Try and just land an EMP and maybe salvage the game. But here come those queens. That's going to be one tank going down in a second. There's so many queens just sitting over there. Oh, how many does he have? It looked like 8 or so.
Yeah, I mean, and they have free reign. There's just not any Goliaths guarding these tanks, so he can just sit around, take his time, cast them one by one, and that's it. That's so many Hydralisks left over. Terran units completely decimated. And Gornich is going to attack move his way through to the final match here. Not much Ziggy can do. I mean, he has no more units left.
Yeah, doubling supply, as I pointed out. The problem with queens in the TVZ matchup is they just never die. And there's the GG coming out from Ziggy. So Gornich is going to knock out Ziggy out of BSL11. And now we are going to have Gornich versus Ziki, which is going to be a rematch from a couple seasons ago.
Yeah. And if I recall correctly, Gornich actually beat Ziki. Let me see. Looks like, I don't know, we'll see, but it was definitely I mean, Ziki did beat him in the last one, but I feel like, guys, I have to do my research real quick here. Oh, he did. Oh, he didn't. Wait, he just had close games. Okay. Well, now you can't just sit there and like let me make a fool of myself like that and with a little smirk on your face.
I live for this. That's why I'm smiling all the time. But yeah, I think that Gornich did take a couple victories versus Ziki in BSL 10. So both of these players definitely have a little bit of history. You know that Gornich definitely wants to redeem himself today after the first game. He definitely does not want to be eliminated in the round of 24. He's such a mainstay in BSL that would be a big disappointment for him. Regardless, whoever loses, it's going to be a big hit to the Zerg squad because they are two people that you expect to make at least top 4 every season, and one of them's just flat out gone in our first round of the entire tournament.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen Ziki ZVZ though. This might be his best matchup. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if it is. So, Gornich definitely has his work cut out for him. I feel like Gornich actually has better ZVT, but ZVP, they're probably both kind of the same, but like Ziki definitely probably has the best ZVZ in the non-Korean scene. And it is going to be on Polypoid though, best of 1. So, you know, especially on these bigger maps, again, the scouting is so important. If one player gets like their Overlord scout and the other player doesn't, that can make or break the game. And not to mention just the variability of builds, especially on 4-player maps. You know, you can go for a 12 hatch or something, then if your opponent is going 9 pool, that's it. Whereas on a map like Eclipse, that kind of like very high variance situation doesn't happen as much.
Yeah, so we always talk about how god tier Ziki's Muta Micro is, but I'm thinking about to all the ZVZ games I've seen of Gornich. He can play standard, but you know what game I remember that stands out of all games I've ever seen of Gornich? Well, I'll say it after we get into the game because it looks like our players are ready. So let's find out who's going to survive the group of death. Is it Gornich or is it Ziki? So in the top right, our blue Zerg player scouting correctly. It is Gorinich.
And in the bottom right, also scanning correctly, it is Zziky. And, you know, it's important to point out here, Gorinich is getting kind of lucky. Maybe he's just the god or whatever, but generally you want to scout towards your opponent's natural. And Gorinich is scouting towards the main, but it is going to be the correct scout.
Yeah, an interesting scouting path from Gorinich. And as I was mentioning just a few seconds ago, the game that stands out to me out of all games from Gorinich, I don't know if you saw it. It was the Ground Zero game versus Tai 2. Tell me you saw that game. Gorinich ended up going Hydras in it. Tai 2 took mid-right when it was vertical spawns, top right versus bottom right. He hit a base that Gorinich scouted but didn't notice. The game was absolutely wild. You guys should definitely search for that game on Zero's YouTube when you have a chance.
No, I have no idea. What are you talking about, man?
Oh, you're crazy. That is one of the best BSL games ever. Like that nail biter. You have no idea who's going to win that game.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up. You know, of course, I am a bit of a newcomer to broadcasting the BSL, so I don't have the rich history that Mr. Nyokin here has. You know, of course, he is the boomer.
I talk about builds that you've never even heard of, but yesterday when you were talking about the 2-fact Goliath build, that kind of made me laugh because you nailed it exactly. That was the Lost Temple build back in the day. You go Goliath drop into tanks. I remember playing a sim back then, and this was before replays. So when he did it, I had no idea what his build order was. I was like, man, this guy is so good. Now look at this. First scout for Zziky. He spots the 12 hatch, and in response, Zziky's going to put down a hatch of his own, but he opted into a pool first build.
Yeah, Gorinich. Well, I mean, this is a decent lead to have 12 hatch versus 12 pool. I mean, it's a pretty massive one, honestly. I feel like probably the build in ZVZ that is most capable of dealing with all situations is the 9 pool. Like, even if you have 9 pool versus 12 pool, it's not that big of a deficit. But I feel like 12 hatch is quite oppressive against 12 pool. It just gives you so much more economy. I think it probably gives you like a 2 drone advantage or something compared to the 12 pool, which would give you a 1 drone advantage versus 9 pool or something like that. But maybe I'm totally talking out of my butt. But this is really nice for Gorinich. The thing is, Zziky is going to have some counterplay. His lings are a bit earlier. But look, the hatchery's already done. That's going to be 8 lings. And, you know, completely stuffed. Now Gorinich has basically a drone advantage, at least.
Yeah, and there's really not much going for Zziky either. Like the lair timing for Gorinich is sure it's later, but it's not considerably later. He's got more drones, as you said. He's got access to an additional larva that Zziky will never ever be able to get back. Oh no, one of the drones is not mining at the national. Now, one of the advantages that Zziky does have is you're seeing it right here. Speed has kicked in, and he's trying and sneak a ling into the main if he can. Yeah. But so far, a denial from Gorinich.
Yeah, Gorinich is dealing with this extremely well, and he actually went lair first, didn't even get speed. So, I mean, this Spire is so fast, and you can see, I mean, I'm telling you, like, I really feel like 12 hatch versus 12 pool is just so much more impressive than many of the other build order advantages. And yeah, I mean, this is going to be a timing here for Zziky, though. He is making a lot of lings, not droning up at all. So maybe he can bring it back here with ling speed. I don't know if Gorinich has ling speed himself. Yeah, he does. So nice trade. I mean, this is a good trade for Gorinich. I mean, whatever matters, like the thing that matters here is whether or not Gorinich loses, because he's so far ahead. All he has to do is just get into Mutalisks.
Look at that denial, instantly blocking the ramp, does not let those 2 lings in. Spire is even in favor of Gorinich, and he has an overwhelming amount of lings. Forced a creep colony out from Zziky, something that he definitely does not want to build. But look how skimpy that lane count is. It looked like about 6 or 7. Meanwhile, Gornich maybe has like 15 or so. So if he was to go for a counterattack, he could potentially deal a decent amount of damage, or at least force more links. Gornich feeling so confident he's building his extractor. Ziki, I guess, is going to match the extractor. But look, it just started. Meanwhile, Gornich is completed, and the first few middle lists are going to be coming out for both of our players.
Yeah, well, Ziki has to make something happen still. I mean, you can see he's behind in supply. This engagement, really nice micro there from Ziki, actually kills 2 drones, which is massive. That's exactly what you need to do to get back into this game. But Gornich is going to pick off a lot of those lings. The Mutalisk is out as well. Ziki does trade the lings back, but when all is said and done, Gornich conserves his supply lead. He does have a lot more Mutalisks out on the field for now. We'll have to see if he tries to play aggressively there. That's 3 drones. I do like that from Gornich. And the counterattack with the lings. They get into Ziki's main. They're going to be able to kill these drones. Ziki's in a whole lot of trouble.
Yeah, Ziki with the ling attack, I thought had, even up the score. But Mutas into the natural wall. The drones got transferred. Luckily, none of them had fallen just yet. But one of the Mutalisks got picked off, and now Ziki is not mining minerals at all because they were all being transferred. So now Gornich is running away with a huge economic lead, and he's not mining the main gas anymore either.
Yeah, that's right, Nayokin. I mean, it's just really kind of a difficult situation here for Gornich. Or, I mean, for Ziki. I mean, how does he come back? I feel like, honestly, Striker kind of had this type of situation. Well, I mean, Gornich has a better lead than Striker did against Avilov, but Striker also had a decent advantage, and the Mutalisk engagement just went so poorly for him. So really, I feel like that's all Ziki can rely on, is maybe this fight going really well for him. Those 2 Scourge, kind of everything passes by, and really it's up to Ziki's Muta micro to bring this back, and we know he does have incredible Mutalisk micro, so we'll have to see if he can do it here.
Yeah, but it's only 5 Mutalisks versus, I thought I saw 10 for Gornich. So as long as the Scourge don't connect, this is an overwhelming amount of Mutalisks, and it looks like none of them are, maybe 2, and that's it. And this should be Gornich eliminating Ziki. There's only 4 Mutalisks right there.
Yeah, and Gornich, he's doing it, man. He's having kind of like his comeback from last season's Group of Death. He's going to make it out this time, and he played phenomenally well today. So, yeah, Ziki, though, what else can he do that is so many Mutalisks? I think Ziki, of course, this is his tournament, life on the line, so he will battle it out till the very end. But without any Mutalisks, all he can pray for is maximum Scourge connections. Maybe Gornich doesn't pay attention to his Mutalisks. Maybe these Scourge just run in and kill everything, but that would be close to a miracle for Ziki.
Yeah, but even if that happened, he would be probably still behind because Gornich just has so much econ. It's still 4 Mutalisks versus what it looks like 13 now. The Scourge did connect, surprisingly. He gets like 5 connections there, but still the Muta count is just paltry for Ziki. There's still 10 or 11 left over for Gornich. Ling's running into the main also. This is going to be Ziki tapping out, and unfortunately, he is going to be eliminated in the round of 24.
Wow, really surprising result there, because Ziki was, he made top 8 last season in BSL 10, the culmination of all BSLs, which was probably the hardest tournament there has been. So that, for Ziki to be out at the round of 24 is for sure an upset. But, if I'm Ziki, I wouldn't be too disappointed, because Gornich, again, he is a monster player. If anything, I think Gornich is heavily underrated, especially when compared to basically Eon Zerg and Ziki, because he for sure is up there, and on his good days plays better than them, and we saw it today.
Yeah, I was very worried after the first game of the day with Gornich, where it just nothing went well for him. So I am happy that he does manage to make it out of the group, because for you to lose a game like that in your first series, you're just feeling like down in the dumps. So really nicely done that it didn't, that game didn't affect his mental state, and he was able to bring it back. But unfortunately, as you mentioned, Ziki is going to fall. But still, we got two incredible players out of this group in Dandy and Gornich. And your prediction was half right. You got Dandy right, and then Gornich making it out in second place.
Yeah, no, but I mean, honestly, Gornich is an extremely strong player, and again, it's really cool to see him make it out this time, because he was so close. He was so close last time, and he lost to Sziky. So it literally is, it cannot be written better than this for him. But you know, Gornich only gets through to the round of 16, so still has quite a ways to go to the championship, of course. Dandy also made it through earlier today, well, just before Gornich. And we also had Avilov and Quark making it through from Group C. So exciting day, American. What do you think about today's games? Like, what's the standout moment?
The Proxy 3 game.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't see what else could stand out for me. Like, it went unscouted. Proxy instantly got punished by not scouting that natural. And also the follow-up game, because since I don't really watch streams that often, I wasn't sure how Quark was going to play. When I saw the Forge opener, I was like, oh, am I in 2010 now? Like, I thought we went away from the Forge play, but that was an interesting opener, and he showed that he can make the Forge opener work on Sylphid, so it was really nicely done from him. And then Avilov, surprising me quite a bit, because last season he kind of bombed out in the ZVZ group, and this time gets redemption. But I'm not really too surprised about the secondary group. I think I was expecting Dandy to kind of just bulldoze Terran versus Zerg. He's so good PvC. You cannot mess up your build order versus him. If you do, he will do what he showed. He will tank push you and you will lose. So I think Group D kind of went as expected for me, but the first group was a little surprising.
Yeah. Sick performance today from Quark and from Avilov as well. Just making it through that group, which was also an extremely hard group. And oh my god, Monkey Library with the $100 tip. Go BSL12. Guys, thank you so much again for your unwavering support. I mean, BSL11 is, you can see it here, down here, guys, like down here, community support, because really that's our main sponsor, guys. It's you. You know, BSL11 is happening because during BSL10 we did get up to that $4,000 goal, and we made it happen. So again, BSL12 well on the way there, and it's just, again, it's so incredible the amount of support that we get from everyone. And you know, speaking of which, Nayokin, how can our viewers continue supporting us?
Yes, you can support BSL in several ways, and one of the main ways you can do that is you can become a Patreon. There's several tiers of the Patreon that you could consider supporting. At the $100 level, we have Andrei Strepkowski and Star Lover. At the Bombastic Colonel level, we have Grail and a longtime supporter, Striker, who also plays in the BSL. $30 level to Apocalypse and Gruglog, and then at the $20 level, it's so hard to read, 1x1 War X, I think, Christian Eddington, Mad Cat's Ferry Road, Martin Harzmer, LML Lingen Pump, and Kamchak. Thank you so much, and thank you to all the other Patreon supporters. I think at the $20 level, you get all the replays from BSL, but I could be wrong. I can't remember exactly. So definitely, if you want to get these replays, definitely think about becoming a Patreon supporter.
And obviously also Esport Fund for sponsoring us. And Esport Fund has been doing so much work for StarCraft in not just the foreign scene, but also the Korean scene. Of course, if you guys watch ASTL, they are sponsoring Flash's team. And also, if you guys want, make sure to check out the BSL merch store for them sexy t-shirts. Look at that.
Look, there's the BSL socks I'm talking about. I see them at the bottom.
Yeah, you were talking about getting socks like as a boomer or something. I mean, they do look swag. But definitely, you know, you don't have to just donate and kind of just give us or give BSL money, but you can also get something in return for it. And really, the merch is absolutely dope. You know, I'm gonna be, you know, once my gym opens up, I'm gonna be sporting these t-shirts all day, every day. Bombastic Starleague. People are gonna be asking me, what does bombastic mean? And I'll be like, oh, I'll show you.
You might have to ask Zero for another size once you start going to the gym. You might bump up and just Hulk out of that one you got. Oh my God.
Well, that's what bombastic means.
Okay. Well, that's going to wrap up today. We got through Group C and D. We still have 2 groups left over. It's going to be Group A and E tomorrow. So we've got players like True Touch, Heck, Michael, a new player for me, Sneasel, which apparently is an old school Polish player. And then in Group E, we've got Grime Boss himself, Casper, Hugo X, DT Man Incarnate, and then we've got 2 NA hopefuls in Hawk and Dragon. We saw both of the NA players got eliminated today, so hopefully Hawk and Dragon can get on the board, or maybe Michael can make a surprise victory in Group A.
Yeah, so definitely extremely exciting games coming up tomorrow. You won't want to miss that. And then, of course, from now on, guys, BSL every Saturday, Sunday, 6:30 Central European Time. I mean, what more can you ask for?
Yeah, and there's also going to be Gosu League and Chobo League. I'm not sure exactly the schedule of Gosu League and Chobo League, but definitely check them out. I know casters like Age and Veer Rev will be casting them, great casters, so definitely tune in. And the players are good. Don't just think like, oh, they're not in Pro League, they're not good. You know, when I was in Chobo League, me and Nagram faced off in the finals, and both of us were 2,300. So, I mean, Chobo League is not even Chobo. Like, it's ridiculously hard to play. I know Cadenzi has played in Gosu League. Quark was in Gosu League the previous season, so definitely check that out.
Yeah, and that'll be it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with some more 9 guy